Hey guys, it's Marshall Mathers the fourth here, back to you today with another video. And in today's video, this will be a part 2 to my video titled Why I'll Never Move to a Big City or Ever Experience Diversity. This will be part 2 to that video. And in this video, I want to talk about and mention some of the things that I did not get to talk about and mention in that previous video that I did. And I want to start out by saying that one of the main reasons why I'll also never move to a big city is because let's just all face it here. I would never be able to make it living in a big city. And so why the fuck should I even bother to ever move to a big city, or any big city for that matter? That would just be really stupid and dumb of me to do something like that, knowing very well that I would not be able to take or handle living in a big city, because I am not used to living in a big city. Not at all. Not the slightest bit. And honestly, when I think about myself, I think that I am pretty stunted emotionally and mentally because of the upbringing that my parents unfortunately gave me. The one that they thought was good enough or fine or okay. But in reality, it wasn't. It never was. And the upbringing that they gave me did eventually fuck me up in the long run. It really ruined and wrecked me as a person, as a guy, when I would grow up and become a teenager, and then also, and of course, an adult. They just gave me the shittiest possible upbringing that they ever could have given me. And they didn't even think twice about the kind of upbringing that they were giving me, and really think long, hard, and thoroughly if it was actually a good upbringing, a great upbringing, a normal upbringing. They didn't, because I feel like they were only really thinking about themselves, and I feel like they were only really focusing on what they wanted, what their dreams and hopes, wishes and aspirations and desires were. Not what mine were, or any of their other children for that matter. But out of most of my siblings, I definitely think I got fucked up the most, by far. I mean, I do think there's a few other siblings of mine that are fucked up in their own ways, but I would say I'm definitely one of the most. And, when I say that I am stunted emotionally and mentally, I mean that in the terms of being like most normal 24-year-old guys out there in America. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I'm not. I'm not even close. I am the farthest thing from most other normal faggot-ass 24-year-old guys out there in the world, or even just America by itself. I am nothing like them at all, whatsoever. And it does make me extremely depressed knowing that, and thinking about that, and dwelling on that, and focusing on that. Because it's such an obvious truth and fact, where it's not like I can't focus on it, or I can't dwell on it. It's impossible for me not to think about all the obvious truths and facts about myself or my life. And for all the reasons and in all the ways that I am so emotionally and mentally fucked up, and emotionally and mentally stunted. As tragic as it is to say. And You know, I remember in the past when I would make some of my videos about wishing cities never existed, and what I should have titled those videos was I wish big cities would have never existed, because those are the specific cities that trigger the fucking shit out of me. It's not really small or medium-sized cities, it's the big ones. Those are the ones that have pissed me off, made me angry, jealous, envious, have suicidal thoughts, crippling depression, and stress over the years of me being a teenager from 15 years old to 22, from 2012 to 2019, and then in 2020, at the age of 23, all hell broke loose for me emotionally and mentally. And I remember this girl or this woman telling me on some of those videos that I did in the past on my YouTube channel that in order to even make it living in a big city, you have to be strong, you have to be tough. And you know what? I couldn't agree more. I think she was definitely making a great point there, and a great statement that I most definitely agree with and don't deny for a second. I mean, of course you have to be strong and tough to make it living in a big city. It's not like you're going to have emotionally and mentally stunted or damaged or unhinged or whatever, so to speak, people living in a big city. And even if they do, they're not going to have a very good time, because there's a lot of cons that come to living in a big city. Sure, there are definitely pros, and I would say there's more pros than, in my opinion at least, there are cons. But there still are cons. And if you can't handle those cons, if you can't handle those negative or bad things or experiences or whatever when it comes to living in a big city, then living in a big city is probably something not for you. And you'd probably be better off not living in a big city and moving to maybe a smaller city or a medium city at least. And I know very well that I would not be able to handle living in a big city when it comes to all the bad and negative con things that come to living in a big city, or that come with living in a big city, is what I meant to say. And, you know, it does make me feel like dog shit, knowing that I can only wish that I would have had the upbringing of being raised in a big city. Because the only realistic way that, in my opinion and point of view, anyone can get used to living in a big city, no matter their race or gender, is if they were raised there from pretty much a baby or a child, or even at least at the very latest, their early teens. And if they weren't raised in one at least since their early teenage years, then they're probably not going to make it ever living in a big city, and they're probably, if anything, better off not living in one. And it really has broken me over the years, crushed me, and just torn me the fuck apart emotionally and mentally, knowing that I never had the privilege, opportunity, chance, or experience of being raised in a big city, as much as I wish I could have been since I was 15 years old. I mean, my longing, yearning, desire, craving, and wishing, hope, and dream to move to a big city and to also live in one when I was a teenager was very extreme and severe. Probably more than any of you could ever possibly imagine or understand, for that matter. Like, I really wanted to move to and live in a big city. That was one of my, if anything, most and main ultimate hopes and dreams to achieve or fulfill or accomplish. And I wasn't able to do that. I was not able to fulfill, accomplish, or achieve myself being able to move to a big city and live in one, to where I could have been able to experience and also enjoy living in one because of the environment, the culture, the people, the diversity, the places. I mean, it's just one big adventure. That's what I think of it when I think of living in a big city, or people who were lucky, blessed, and fortunate of being able to even be raised in one. And you know what also is a pretty tragic thing when I think about it, that just breaks my heart even talking about it, and sometimes I just wish I could cry about it, but I cried for so many years as a teenager and even in my early 20s that it's pretty hard and difficult for me to cry and just break down and start bawling. It's pretty hard for me to have that still happen. But anyways, what's tragic is the fact that when I was a child, or a kid in other words, I loved going to Grand Rapids, for example. Back in that time period in my life where I had no anger, no hatred, no jealousy or envy of any sort or kind. And I was just a pretty happy kid, even though I wasn't an extrovert and that social or that outgoing, not even when I was a kid myself, but I did definitely like and enjoy going to Grand Rapids in the state of Michigan. And I loved being able to go to the John Ball Zoo. I loved being able to go to the Van Andel Museum, the Gerald R. Ford Museum, going out to eat there, going to see family there, or friends that like lived nearby or something like that. And even just walking around and just exploring a little bit of it here and there, and just driving around there was even kind of exciting for me as a kid, that is, and even somewhat as a teenager. But that all changed, obviously, because even though as a teenager I still had that excitement inside of me that was very extreme and severe, at the same time it was agonizing. It was torturing and tormenting me emotionally and mentally, and just fucking me up, because I didn't live there. I was never originally from there. I don't even know what it would have been like to grow up there if I would have had that privilege, if I would have had that experience, which I really wish I would have had and got, but I didn't. And ever since I was a teenager, it has just broken my fucking heart and made me so fucking pissed, jealous, envious, angry, and full of hatred for all the motherfucking people who were lucky, blessed, and fortunate and just spoiled rotten enough of being raised there, especially when it comes to the cock-sucking, faggot-ass millions of white Americans in this country who even were raised in any big city where there were a shit ton of black people, Mexicans, Asians, Muslims, and Indian people. It just makes me furious, knowing that since I was a kid, I missed out on something that popular and that overrated, that I was just totally excluded from that. I did not get to have a part of it, not a taste of it. I was totally distant from it, far away from it, literally. And, you know, in my early 20s, starting from the age of 23, I stopped wanting to go to Grand Rapids because it's, honest to God, just like a painful reminder for me. And even if I go to another big city in another state, a state that I never even lived in or visited or whatever, even then it's a painful reminder, because it's still a reminder, and a painful one at that, of something that I really longed, yearned for, desired, and extremely craved as a teenager. So much, to such a crazy, insane level, that I just really hoped and wished for myself, of being able to live in a big city myself, personally, and to be able to experience all the spectacular things that come with living in a big city. And I didn't get to. And so every time I see a sign that says Grand Rapids, anytime that I even have to go there for any reason at all, but I only go there if I absolutely have to, like, for example, if I have to go to some appointment there that I can't go to in another place, I'll go there. Or if I have to go there for like a driver's training appointment, or like I said, some sort of appointment, like if I absolutely have to go, I will obviously go. But even then, I go there and I'm just so numb, so neutral to it now. And even since last year in 2020, when I was 23 years old. When I was a teenager, every time I went there, I was excited. Same with when I was a kid. But I would say even more so as a teenager, because every time I went there as a teenager, I knew that I would have been able to see black people, but sadly only from inside a moving vehicle. I was never able to actually walk up to any of them and talk to any of them, socialize with them, interact with them socially or physically. I was never able to get to know any of them on a very deep and personal level. I could only ever see them from inside a moving vehicle, and that was it. That was the closest experience I ever had to experiencing black people from a big inner city. And that was it. But as a teenager, I just kind of thought to myself, well, at least it's better than nothing. At least it's something. But leaving Grand Rapids was just always depressing, always crushing, always heartbreaking. It was always torturing and tormenting, agonizing, stressful for me. And it just tore me the fuck apart emotionally and mentally. I hated leaving Grand Rapids as a teenager. I never wanted to leave. Never. I never wanted to leave. I wanted to live there so badly, but I didn't. And I couldn't. And you know, one thing that really pisses me the fuck off about the fact that my parents didn't think to raise me or any of their other children there is because most of our family members from Michigan live there and in some surrounding areas. And it's like, even for that reason, we didn't think to stay in Grand Rapids. Well, my parents didn't themselves. I would have loved to. I would not have minded or cared one bit if my parents would have stayed in Grand Rapids. I would have definitely thanked them so much. I would not have been able to thank them enough if that would have been the case, or if that would have been the actual reality of things in my life. But it wasn't. That didn't happen. Not even close. And I only ever did live the first 4 years of my life there. 4 years. 4 lame, pathetic, pitiful, worthless, lousy years of my life. That's definitely not long enough to even at least go to kindergarten there, which would have been when I was 5 years old in 2002. But that was the year we moved out of Grand Rapids. And also on top of that, it's not long enough to go to any grades in elementary school to where I could have definitely and easily have experienced diversity of such a just vast amount. And it was also long enough, of course and obviously, not to be able to go to middle school in Grand Rapids, and for that matter, high school. Even if I would have still dropped out in high school, I would have definitely rather done so in Grand Rapids if I could have had the chance and opportunity and privilege to do so. But I didn't. And you know, another reason why I'll never move to a big city or ever experience diversity is because, here's the thing, and this is probably going to be like the most painful, depressing thing that I'm going to mention and talk about in this video, which is, you know, I do make a lot of videos and community posts bashing and attacking Black Americans in America, in this country. And what would be really awkward for me is if I were to go out in public and accidentally bump into a black man or woman, not intentionally or on purpose, but accidentally, and have that black man or black woman just so happen to see my YouTube videos or to have seen my community posts. That would be the most socially awkward thing for me to ever have to experience and go through. And every time when I even go in Greenville, because Greenville is starting to have a little bit more diversity as time goes on and keeps progressing into the future, but even that city I would never want to fucking live in, because I hate the fact that my dad and mom both chose to move out of that city. I never even hated that city, I just simply hated the people in it. But the fact that my parents chose to move out of that city pisses me the fuck off. It makes me so angry, so full of hatred, so depressed, so stressed out, and just so torn apart. Because I didn't want to move out of there, but my parents did, and they didn't check with any of their children or me. They didn't think to. They didn't even think that they were supposed to, or that parents have to ask their kids permission to move to the country when they were living in a city for like fucking 7, almost 8 years. But it was their choice and decision, not mine or even any of my other siblings. I do have some weirdo siblings, like one of my younger brothers who's super antisocial and introverted, way more than even me, and he always talks about how he hates everyone, and he loves living in the country. But most of my siblings did not want to move to the country, especially when it comes to my younger sisters. 2 of them in specific were really crushed, heartbroken, mad, and angry, and just so bitter when we were moving to the country, and when they found out just how far from Greenville we were moving. It's just so annoying. But anyways, I'm getting kind of off topic here, I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, the thing that really makes me feel guilty, even though I do feel justified in my feelings of hatred, anger, jealousy, and envy towards Black Americans that were privileged and spoiled enough of being raised in a big city. And even though I feel like I have all the right and reason to feel the very extreme, severe ways that I do about them or towards them, I can't help but feel anytime I go to any city where I actually see them in person, in the physical flesh, in real life, I can't help but feel extremely severely guilty, even when I see them from inside a moving vehicle. Even though I'm not interacting with them, and I never would, because I'm not an extrovert anyways. I'm not a social person, and I never have been, unless people approach me first and start talking to me first. But otherwise, I'm not going to say jack shit anytime I go out in public, because that's not the kind of fucking person I am, and I never fucking will be. No thanks to my bullshit ass upbringing given to me by my parents. But anyways, you know, anytime I'm inside a moving vehicle or inside a grocery store and see a black man or black woman grocery shopping themselves, or I see black man or woman walking in a parking lot or on the sidewalk or some basic shit like that, I feel an overwhelming amount of guilt. Why? Because there's a part of me that does feel bad for attacking and bashing Black Americans as much as I have been in my YouTube videos and community posts. I'm not even kidding. I'm dead fucking serious. I do feel really guilty. A very overwhelming amount of guilt every time I see them in public, in person, in real life. And when I do see them for any amount of time, I either look away if I am staring for too long of a period of time, or I look at the ground in just crushing, crippling depression. And I also feel pretty awkward when going out in public, like to a grocery store especially, when I'm even closer and even more in the presence of black people. And when I see them just obviously minding their own business and doing their grocery shopping, I just look at them with eyes of sadness. I don't even look at black people with eyes of hatred. I never have. Even when I go to Grand Rapids and I'm inside a moving vehicle and I see a black woman inside another vehicle, I just look at her, or I look at a black man with eyes of someone who's been really tortured and tormented emotionally and mentally over the years. Someone who's had really extreme, severe, crippling depression over many years of my life. Stress, anger, hatred, jealousy, envy, and suicidal thoughts. All at the same time for many years of my life, to the point where I've just become so numb and neutral to it. In other words, I've just become so used to it, where it's just so much a part of me now. And the damage has been done. And that's something that so many of you motherfuckers fail to realize. That I have been too damaged to the point, beyond the possibility of ever recovering from the amount of suffering in my life that I have gone through and experienced for so many years of my miserable life. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemies. I would not wish all the emotional and mental suffering and just hell that I have been through and lived through in my life on my worst enemies. Because I would not ever want anyone to have to go through the bullshit or hell that I have had to go through myself in my life. But when I look at a black woman or black man, anytime I go out in public, I look at them with eyes of someone who's just so very dead inside. Seriously. I just look at them with such dead eyes of hopelessness, of someone who's just always on the edge or the verge of collapse, someone who's always walking on thin ice, someone who hates his life and wishes he was never born, because my life was just too depressing. I hated my life for so long. And I honest to God do wish I would have never been born. Seriously. I wish I would have never, ever been born. Especially if I would have known what my life would have consisted of. If I would have known all the reasons that I would have suffered in the future of my life. If I could have, like, seen, like, a pre-existence before I was even born, like a vision or some shit like that, I would have not wanted to have been born at all. And I honestly would have been better off not being born. That's something that I definitely believe, and I think a lot of other people would agree with too. Maybe not everyone, but I definitely think a lot of people would agree on the fact that I should have never been born, and that it would have definitely been better off if I would have never been born. And, you know, a lot of people want to say that I'm racist, which honestly I have no problem or issue with. I'm not bothered or affected one bit when so many people want to say or think that I am a racist person. That's cool with me. I honestly don't care, because if I'm racist, then I guess that's fine with me. If you all want to assume that of me or accuse me of being so, fine. Do as you please, because I really don't care anymore. But here's the thing. Realistically speaking, I am not racist, because I don't hate black people because of their skin. I'm not disgusted by black people's skin. I never have been. I am not bothered, affected, or offended, or triggered by black Americans or black people ever being a part of this country of America in the first place. I don't mind this country being as diverse that it is. But one thing that has just caused me so much suffering in my life is the fact that I never got to experience that. I never had the privilege of being able to experience that for myself and enjoy that and get used to that over a period of time in my life that I wish would have been since I was a kid, up into my teenage years, and then up until this very point in time, and so on and so forth. But it wasn't. It didn't happen that way that I really wished it would have. And you know, the interesting thing about me, like I said before and earlier in this video, is that I've never looked at black people with hatred. When I'm actually out in public, like I said, and I am being dead serious when I say this, honest to God, I look at them with just dead eyes. Not even with eyes of jealousy and envy or even anger towards them, but just eyes of just deep sadness, deep depression, eyes of someone who has suicidal thoughts, not urges or tendencies, but definitely thoughts, eyes of somebody who's dealt with and had to experience the worst possible and most darkest negative emotions, feelings, or energy that anyone in the world could ever have to go through themselves, of hatred, anger, jealousy, envy, crippling depression, stress, and suicidal thoughts. All of those things I've had to deal with since I was 15 years old in 2012. And I never was able to see a counselor or a therapist over this shit. Why? Because my fucking parents don't have the kind of money to afford that shit. If they would have, I probably would have gotten a lot of counselors and therapists or therapy over the years. But even then, I don't believe for a second that all the counseling or therapy in the whole world could ever make me better, because the damage has been done. In all seriousness, the damage has been done. let's face the facts here. Let's face reality here for a second, for a minute. And just realize that the damage to me specifically has been too great to ever recover from. Even if I were to recover from some of it, maybe I would be able to from some of it, but I doubt even that. I really don't even believe that will ever be the case for me. And, you know, here's another thing that I also want to say about counseling or therapists is that at the end of the day, those counselors or therapists don't give a shit about me or any of you. They're only listening to your sob stories, or mine for that matter, because we're paying them. And we're paying them a lot of money. If they were not getting money for that, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't bother. But because they're making money for honestly doing one of the most easiest jobs ever, I would have to say, of just simply listening to people's problems and issues, listening to people's emotional and mental suffering in their life or struggles, or in other words, listening to their sob story, they're listening to it because they're getting paid a shit ton of money. Hell, if I were a counselor and therapist, I'd be so happy, honestly, because I would be earning so much money just simply for listening to people's problems, listening to people's sob stories, their life of suffering, because otherwise I wouldn't do it either. And I'm going to be honest here, I wouldn't do it either. And that's why they do it. So, in a way, I kind of look at it as like, why should I even bother telling someone who really is not going to give a damn about me, or ever knew me personally, or actually seen what it was like for me growing up, my problems, and just really open up and pour out my heart and soul like I have been on my YouTube channel and my YouTube videos and community posts, when they're only doing it because they're getting paid. Because otherwise they wouldn't do it. Otherwise they wouldn't care to give a damn about me. And what I mean by that is they wouldn't pretend to care to give a damn about me. I mean, they wouldn't pretend to give a damn about me, I'm sorry. And they wouldn't pretend to, like, really feel sorry and bad for me. But, you know what, they're good at pretending when they're getting paid money. And that's why they would even bother to listen. Because they would be getting paid money. And again, a lot of money. So, those are all the reasons why I'll never move to a big city or ever experience diversity. But I also want to say that what I was talking about earlier in this video, that it would really be extremely severely awkward for me to have to even live in a smaller medium-sized city, or especially a big city, if I actually had to, when there would even be a lot more black people, knowing that there's the possibility and chance, even though it's probably more likely so that they don't even know I have a YouTube channel, have never seen my YouTube channel, don't know I exist, don't know who I am. And obviously most black people in America still have not discovered or even stumbled across or upon my channel. And thank God they haven't. But that is my intention, though. That is my desire for them to do so. I hope they do. I hope as many black people as possible see my YouTube videos and community posts. I'd love that. But at the same time, I do definitely feel guilty for attacking and bashing them as much as I have been, even though I think they deserve it, and especially white people who were able to grow up around their oh so wonderful, precious black friends that they were able to experience since they were little kids and teenagers up into their adulthood and whatever age they're at currently. And the thing is, it just would be seriously awkward for me to have to even interact with a black man or woman, any black man or woman for that matter, because of the stuff I say in my YouTube videos and in my community posts. And there's always that thought and feeling in my mind or in my head that it's like, I wonder if this black man or black woman has seen my YouTube videos or a community post. I always wonder that anytime I go out in public and like go to a grocery store or somewhere and I'm in the presence of a black man or woman, or black men and women, if there's more than one, I can't help but wonder if those black people have seen my YouTube videos about them or my community posts, because that would be really embarrassing and really awkward for both of us to encounter each other if that were the case. And even if they don't, I still can't help but wonder that, or think that in my mind, if they have seen my YouTube videos or not, or if they have seen my community posts or not. And that's why I always feel guilty, and why I just feel like all around dog shit anytime I'm in the physical presence of a black person, black man or woman or both, or more than one black man and woman. I just feel really guilty and embarrassed and like dog shit, and I feel extremely awkward anytime I go out in public. So it's definitely like, for me, it's like a suffocating feeling. And when I notice myself looking at them too long, and I only do so because I wonder if that black man or black woman that I'm staring at in the grocery store or wherever they are, if they have seen my YouTube videos or community posts, that's why I even stare at them. But I think that there's also another reason that I stare at them, because of the fact that I just simply feel guilty because of the amount of judgment that I've been giving them, and how much I've been bashing and attacking them. I just naturally normally feel guilty about that. I feel like shit about it. So I'll look away or look at the ground in just deep sadness. And then when I go to a big city and I'm inside a moving vehicle, and then I look at a black woman inside of another vehicle who just happens to be really attractive, or that I at least think is really attractive, I just look at her, or I look at a black man with eyes of dead eyes. I just look at them with deadness in my eyes, just pure deadness. I have the eyes of a dead man. I'm like a walking zombie here. I have eyes of deep sadness. I have eyes of just a crazy, insane amount of damage, emotionally and mentally. Eyes of hatred, anger, jealousy, envy, crippling depression, stress, and suicidal thoughts. I mean, how worse could my life possibly get? And it can't get worse. But actually it has been. If I'm going to be honest here, it has been getting a lot worse. And that's one thing I knew that would happen even when I was a teenager. I just didn't know in what way it would get worse. But it did. And I was definitely right in my prediction of that, at least. But I definitely knew my life was going to get worse as I got older and as time kept moving forward and progressing. But this is all I wanted to say in this video. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I'm out.